Biggest part as we got into this as a staff is trying to get some more team speed, feeling like that's an area, particularly on offense with our receiving core, getting some more guys that can run, and we addressed that. There's 4 kids in this class, and I know you guys can read as you go through it, but they have verified times, whether they're track times, same thing with some of the DBs, whether they were verified times in our camps, but guys that can really run, and separate and create some explosive plays for us. 3 really good, tough, smart offensive linemen, high character guys, 2 linebackers that can run and hit, a defensive lineman, Davin Van, that's a very flexible guy that can play multiple positions. You see him even running down on kickoff, all-state player. Our quarterback, obviously we know a lot about, not just Ben, but his family and his pedigree and his mentality, the way he was raised, his family. Tight end who's got great bloodlines, but also incredible size. He's going to be a guy that we can build up in our program, and then a guy that can be a punter, kicker, and a kickoff guy that can help us behind the specialists we have to compete with those guys. And I think it always starts as a team effort. I think I've said that to you guys before. Our staff across the board, recruits these guys. I'm involved, the coordinators are involved, the position groups, the area coaches, the recruiting staff. And then once they get here, our staff, our coaches, our GAs, our quality controls, our players that host, the academic advisors, the professors, the caterers, the cooks, you name it, the administration that's a part of it. There's so many people, our equipment staff, and just like to give them all a thank you, and particularly Billy Glasscock and his staff and our recruiting office. A lot of logistics go into that, a ton. So a lot of work went into this class, and very excited about these young men and their opportunity to come to NC State, and even just the ability to stay at the hotel we stay at, over on Centennial campus is incredible. But we were looking for tough guys, competitive guys, loyal guys that love to train, and I think that's the one thing in our program. We have to develop players, and obviously we're going to compete for every good player that we can get that has the grades and the character. But we want young men that love to train so that they look a lot different after a couple years with Coach Thunder and his staff, that have that work ethic and that desire and that love. So that's what this class is all about, and I think, as you go through it, you'll see the class, 17 guys. Again, the state of North Carolina was where we got the most of our kids, with 6 in-state guys. 8 of them are early enrollees. 2 of them were all-state. 2 of them were state champions, and Devon Betty's team's actually playing in the national championship in Las Vegas this Saturday against St. Louis High School from Hawaii. So pretty awesome to have that going on for him and for their team at St. Thomas Aquinas. 4 Shrine Bowl invitees that are down there right now, and Boykin, Van, Coit, and Uda, and then Rooks was in the World Bowl. And then a bunch of guys that were multi-sport athlete, guys that play basketball, track, wrestling, golf, soccer. 2 with brothers in the NFL, obviously Ryan Finley and Ben Finley, and then our tight end Uda and his brother is playing in the NFL now. So a lot of good bloodlines in there, a lot of good people, and excited to get them here. And unlike last year, where I think 90% of our class was already here in January, 8 of the 17, so a little less than half will be here January 2nd. So can't wait to get them here, and look forward to coaching them and building on what we've done in this program. Open it up for any questions.
Coach, when you bring in a quarterback whose brother was so successful here, how do you handle that with an expectation standpoint?
I think Ben is his own guy. I think he's got to blaze his own trail. He chose to come to NC State for his reasons. And while I was recruiting him, that was when we knew that if we play really well, Eli could be a head coach. And I told him, you can't come here because of Eli. You can't come here because of Ryan. This needs to be your school. And he committed that way. And so, but obviously, from the outside looking in, there's always going to be comparisons for him, and he's going to have to do it his own way.
You mentioned the speed. I think there were like 5 wide receivers and quite a few defensive backs. Was this a class based on need, or was it just, you try to go out and get the best guys you can?
Well, I think you always start with your needs, but you're not going to take a guy to take a guy. We ended up where we still have the ability to go get some more. We have 5 left that we can sign, and so whether we're looking at graduates, whether we're looking at junior college players, whether we're looking at high school players that didn't sign, but yeah, you start with your needs, and we still have some needs, But the thing you want to look at is, all right, if we're going to take this many receivers, what do they have to have? If we're going to take a DB, what do they have to have? What makes us better than where we are today? And I think the one thing that we saw watching us on the field this year, we need to get more separation. We need to have more runs after the catch. And so adding some competition in that room with those skill sets was important.
The Devin Van recruitment was really interesting because he kind of came out of nowhere, being right down the road, and then had a monster senior year after, and he's so good in other sports. What is it like with someone that's local who basically grew up wanting to be part of your program and seems to be blossoming right in front of everybody?
Well, I mean, one, you're fortunate to have that, right? You want to have that more. You want more of those kids. Davin is such a humble young man and quiet young man, but ultra competitive young man, and so proud of him, excited for him. I've heard he's doing really well at the Shrine practices as well, but it's a lot like when we had Naheem and Garner. I mean, sometimes you just have an elite player in your area that's right down the street, and he grew up watching your team play, and he wants to be in that uniform, and so it was nice for us to have that opportunity for him and for him to be able to seize it.
You mentioned still needing some things. What particularly do you think is the biggest gap that you didn't get today?
I think on the line of scrimmage, we'll be looking on the O-line and the D-lines. I think those are 2 spots that we'll continue to look, probably more than any as you go through it, I think. And as you look at the grad transfer guys that come out of nowhere, and is there a guy that we think is better than what we're playing with? If that happens, then yeah, we need to look at that player. And so it's kind of case by case in some cases, and the O-line and D-line, I don't think you can ever have enough really good big guys on your football team.
Are we using microphones right now?
I think they prefer that, yeah. There's one behind you.
Sorry, I jumped.
What they're doing over here. You mentioned the receivers. Porter's obviously a kid in Charlotte we know a lot
Yeah,
about.
really excited
What
about
kind of
Porter.
stands out about him with you like?
Well, the first thing that stands out is the type of person that he is. Porter was a national recruit. People didn't stop recruiting Porter, and Porter stayed loyal to us, and that means a lot. He was one of the guys that was at the forefront, one of the earliest commits we had. And then as a player, I think he's consistent. He's a good route runner. He's a good ball catcher. He's got good speed. He's competitive. He understands the game, and I think he's a really hungry kid that wants to prove himself and help elevate our program. And so there's a lot of positives. Family, incredible family, very loyal family to us as well through the process.
You mentioned as soon as he committed to you guys, maybe people recruited him even harder. How do you handle that, and how do you handle guys that flip? Because I know there were a couple of guys that did not come here that originally decided to.
I think my focus is on the ones we got, not the ones we didn't. And I think that's a part of recruiting. Obviously, I have players on my team that we flipped, and that's just a part of it. I don't think coaches stop until we can't. And once they sign, we can't recruit them. And so when a kid commits, we're going to reach out to him and say, we're going to continue to recruit you unless he says, I don't want you to. And so I think that's just the nature of the business right now. Until they make it different where a kid can sign whenever he wants, kids are going to be recruited. Now, how do we handle that? We tell them, don't commit if you want to keep looking. I say those words to our guys. Once you hear you have a scholarship, but by committing, we stop recruiting other players at your position and when it fills up. And most of the kids hear me loud and clear. Some of them don't, and that's the system we have right now.
The 2 offensive linemen from Georgia, did they kind of recruit each other? How did that work?
I don't think they recruited each other. I think as these guys in today's cell phone society, I guess you'd say, can connect regardless of whether they're in Georgia or wherever. I think our guys do that. I think there's a lot of communicating that they have with each other, where they get to actually build relationships when they're not in the same states. But I do think, Sean will be here early, Ethan will be here early. Those guys will build a chemistry together that'll be unique for them because they are from the same state and they're going to be here at the same time.
Any traits that you were looking for with the 3-3-5 defense when it comes to recruiting this class?
Biggest thing is just making sure that you have enough speed and agility at the different positions and competition, and so looking at the roster and who's coming back. I mean, that's the one thing about our football team really in general. We didn't lose a lot off the roster. It was a young football team. There was only a few seniors that were starters. And so I've always wanted competitive talent, a depth chart that's full of competition for positions, and that's what you're looking at. You're looking at if your starting outside linebacker goes out of the game, can his backup come in and do the same stuff? And so just trying to add guys that can run and hit on defense, guys that have good agility, guys that can think on their feet, guys that are reactors. I know Gibby will be available for you guys after if you want to talk to him more about what he's trying to find. But I think on our defense, it's about running and hitting and being able to communicate well. Now, I would tell you one of the guys that probably is the staple of what we're looking for in the back end anyway, Devin Boykin, is just, if you guys ever talk to him, I mean, he's a very smart football player. He plays corner, safety, and nickel. He can do a lot of things. He was a great receiver. He's a great basketball player. I mean, that's what you're looking for when you're looking for a DB.
Not to take away from signing day, but can you touch on what happened with Peyton Wilson, and is there going to be any punishment from you?
Yeah, obviously a very unfortunate, disappointing situation, one that he's going to learn a lot from. Sat down with him, sat down with his family. He feels horrible about it. I know he put something out regarding that, and it's on him now to build it back. But time is going to be important in what he does after that. And as far as where we go from there, that'll be up to us and him in the program.
Do you have kicker PTSD, or are you just getting greedy at this point? What was your thought process of adding the kicker?
Well, I don't know if you guys saw in the Georgia Tech game where Chris pulled a muscle kicking in that game and could barely swing his leg, and tough kid to be able to do it, to make his attempts in that game. I don't ever want to be in a situation again as a coach where I can't make field goals. All right, and I went to a Weddington game this year, and that guy can kick. He can kick off, he can punt, he's very talented. And so to bring him in, one, to compete with who we have, because I think that keeps them on edge. But if he doesn't win the job and he redshirts, then to know that we have somebody for 4 games in case something would happen to Trent or something would happen, to Chris Dunn, so that we can perform on special teams the way that we did this year with our specialists, and then to have that carried on after they leave, so I'm not replacing a senior with a true freshman down the road.
You have 2 newcomers who you already know about with Jones and Gunter. What do you kind of foresee for them next year, and how much strides have they made since they enrolled in the program?
Very excited, very athletic guys, hungry. It's hard to practice every day and never get a play when you're a guy that's used to playing. It's really hard. And Jeffrey Gunter and Levi Jones are both guys that can have a huge impact on our football team. They're excited. I look forward to seeing them when they get back from their break. I actually saw Jeffrey earlier, and there's a lot of energy about them. There's a lot of excitement. Told him the story about Jacoby Brissett. I thought he was, to me, the guy that exemplified what it's like to transfer and have to sit out. He made the scout team game day every day, and these guys did the same thing. They worked really hard. And so now they need to come back with the mentality of being the best that they can be every day and elevating, the position groups that they play with.
Considering the number of guys you do have coming back and the fact that you played so many young guys, do you anticipate redshirting most of this class, or is it one of those things where you case by case basis and see what happens?
I mean, after what I just went through, I don't think I can answer that probably in an accurate way. I'm still trying to overcome 15 starters out for the year or whatever it was. But I tell these kids all the same thing I'll say to you. I want them to come in here and try to win a job. All right, and if they're not ready, or if the competition in front of them is better, then they can redshirt. But their mentality needs to be they're coming into play. They need to come in ready to compete and they need to come in ready to learn our systems, to get to know our staff, to do well in school, and be the best they can be. And if they're not ready, that's what the red shirt's for. And that's the way that I want them to approach it, and all our players to come in here with that competitive edge.
You got 17 on the list now. Do you anticipate many more joining the class?
Not today, but we have from now until the next signing date to add. And like I said, we're still hunting, and we will, and we'll see where it ends up. I mean, really, we have till August, to add guys, and that's happened with Joe Selfo. I mean, that was a late addition a few years back. So I mean, there's some things that can still happen late, and Jeffrey was late. Levi was late. So the way that the kids are transferring, there's some guys you can find that, for whatever reason, want to find a new home, and we just got to make sure we do that at the right position groups if we add them. Anybody else? All right, well, our assistants are here if you guys want to talk to them in detail about any of the kids we signed, and hope you all have a great holiday. All right, enjoy your families. Thank you.
Thank you too, Coach.